In 1989, a woman named Kathleen Sorensen appeared on a public access Christian television program with shocking details about her experiences as a foster parent in Blair, Nebraska.
But in some way, whether with the help of an adult's hand over theirs or by having them practice, by getting them excited to be part of the adult scene — these children have never seen a normal life, for goodness sakes — they do murder. And the evil thing that happens is they really believe they want to. They want to do what the older people are doing, and they're praised for that.
Throughout her life, Sorensen fostered approximately 30 children, many of whom eventually divulged traumatic memories to her, some too shocking to believe.
They enjoy the sex. Children are capable of enjoying the sex. That was something I didn't know. Mm-hmm. Well, you know, why would they fight against it? A child will eat a bag of candy if you give it to them. They will take part in these things willingly. When they get out and begin to talk, that's very difficult for them to realize. We didn't realize it at first, that they actually wanted to do that, and that is part of the very sophisticated brainwashing job that they do on all of these children.
Beginning in January of 1986, when Sorensen first took in 15-year-old Cornelia Webb, Sorensen would bear witness to testimonies from foster children who explained they were survivors of horrific abuse as they were shuffled around the foster care system. Many children claimed they were prostituted to child pornography and trafficking networks.
The part that made me to believe this child's story was that when he finally said this baby, he talked about several, but this particular baby had been killed, stabbed again, different way, but stabbed. He curled up in a fetal position. He was 9 years old when he was telling the story. And he said, they cooked that baby on the grill.
Oh my gosh.
And I thought, he has really flipped out. I mean, I didn't know. And he said, oh, gross, it smelled like rotten chicken or rotten deer.
Sorensen would learn that although these children had formal abuse investigations initiated on their behalf, the Department of Social Services would simply abandon investigations whenever the would-be foster parents terminated the adoption process. The state trooper, after Nellie's testing was completed, told Kathleen Sorensen he tried to break Nellie down, but he was convinced she was telling the truth. He also told Nellie that she passed and that he believed her. Furthermore, despite Nellie and other children passing polygraph tests, Washington County prosecutor Pat Tripp invariably decided not to pursue charges against any of the alleged abusers, citing the vivid imaginations of children. Tripp's line that child victims in Nebraska just invented abuses, and that therefore their complaints need not be seriously investigated, would be heard from one law enforcement agency after another throughout the Franklin case. Sorensen noticed patterns in the children's testimonies, which were indicative of satanic ritual abuse. In 1988, she appeared on Geraldo Rivera's Devil Worship, exposing Satan's underground.
The stories are so outrageous, and I am such an honest person, I assumed everybody would believe me. And to this day, I'll get in the middle of a story and I'll think, they're going to think I'm crazy. This sounds crazy. But when you begin to hear this same thing time and again, different stories, but the same horrible underlying things, the same behaviors in the kids, I just want to scream.
Just months after her appearance on public access television, Sorensen was killed in a head-on collision. From her obituary, which was published by Pilot Tribune on October 10, 1989, we learned that she was traveling on a narrow stretch of Highway 30 in her car with two foster children, one 8 years old and the other 1 month old, on October 4th. At 2:55 p.m., a vehicle piloted by Tina Townsend of Arlington, Nebraska, suddenly crossed the center line, causing a third vehicle to drive into a ditch before striking Sorensen's car. The obituary provided no reason to explain why Townsend suddenly careened into oncoming traffic. The obituary also shines light on many of Sorensen's accolades and charitable endeavors, including co-founding the Nebraska chapter of Believe the Children and the Washington County Foster Parent Support Group. On her headstone are engraved the words, "We always have room for one more." The timing of Sorensen's death, in addition to the graphic testimony she gave the world, should send chills up the spine of any reasonable person. On June 28, 2000, drawing on 49 years' experience in law enforcement and counterintelligence, retired FBI senior special agent Ted Gunderson published a report on satanic activity high up in the U.S. government, in which he expresses his professional opinion that Sorensen was killed by the very group she sought to expose. Gunderson, this writer, was told later from inside sources that in a satanic ceremony, straws were drawn to see who would sacrifice themselves in the suicide mission to kill Kathleen Sorensen. The individuals in the fast-approaching car had prior arrest records for cruelty to animals, a common marker for Satanism. I, Gunderson, suspect in evaluating the accident that it was a satanic contract suicide. The other driver did not die, but could have. In satanic law, a person who loses his or her life in such a contract murder-suicide will be granted with more power by Satan.
Ted Gunderson, respected law enforcement professional, recently or retired now from the FBI, former regional director of Los Angeles. Do you, sir, believe that these dreadful allegations of babies being sacrificed are true?
I absolutely believe it, without any doubt. Based on the information that's been given to me across the country by numerous survivors and by confidential sources and informants.
Then why don't you name these people and arrest them? Never a name, never an arrest. These women come out of a group and they insist that they know the people in the group, and yet they do not identify these large, mysterious cults. Name them and arrest them and get them off the street.
Does he not make a valid point?
He makes a valid point. The problem with that is, number one, police officers don't believe it. I may believe it. You may believe it. Some people in your audience may believe it. They don't believe it. Number two, if you decide to investigate these people, you have to, number one, handle it from an undercover operation. If you put an undercover operation into effect, then you have, in a sense, your own police officers become involved in these heinous crimes, and they are, of course, become murderers. And in addition to that, if you do decide to investigate these people, it's a lot of work. And many law enforcement officers are apathetic and don't want to get involved.
Kathleen Sorensen served as the original complainant in what came to be known as the Franklin case. In fact, Chapter 15 of the 1996 book entitled The Franklin Cover-Up, Child Abuse, Satanism, and Murder in Nebraska, is dedicated to Sorensen. This book was authored by former Senator and Attorney-at-Law, John DeCamp.
It's a web of intrigue that starts in our Holy of Holies, Boys Town, Nebraska, one of the most respected institutions in the United States, and spreads out like a spider web to Washington, D.C., right up to the steps of the nation's capital, the steps of the White House, involves some of the most respected and powerful and richest businessmen in this United States of America. And the centerpiece of the entire web is the use of children for sex and drug dealing and drug couriers, the compromising of politicians, the compromising of businessmen, but worst of all, the corruption of key institutions of government that have the duty and responsibility to make sure these things never happen.
Not only was DeCamp the first man to bring a child sexual abuse case against the Catholic Church, he also served as a key witness during the so-called Satanic Panic, particularly in and around Washington, D.C. In 1975, he helped organize Operation Baby Lift, which safely evacuated more than 3,000 orphaned Vietnamese children out of the war-torn area. DeCamp also represented Mark Taylor, a survivor of the 1999 Columbine High School massacre, and adamantly maintained that the shooters, Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold, had been sex trafficked by law enforcement for years before the incident. Not only was there no verdict in that case, there was no settlement. A mistrial was declared, and nearly 20,000 pages were put under seal, where they remain to this day. In 1993, a film crew from the United Kingdom produced a documentary featuring DeCamp entitled Conspiracy of Silence, which exposed a pedophile ring in the U.S. that stretched to the highest levels of government. It was originally slated to air on the Discovery Channel in 1994, but was canceled before it saw daylight. An article by the Activist Post describes how DeCamp traced the child trafficking network all the way back to the White House during Bill Clinton's presidency. He represented the young victims in the case and spurred a grand jury investigation into the disturbing and brutal pedophilia scandal that ruined many lives. According to DeCamp, more court action has been done to keep everything secret and destroy the depositions than anything I have seen in my 40 years of court activity. The Franklin case began with Larry King, a black financier from Omaha who faced embezzlement charges to the tune of $40 million from the Franklin Federal Credit Union, which he owned. However, it quickly burgeoned in size as overwhelming evidence emerged that a cult with its hands in child trafficking, cannibalism, drug running, and white-collar crime was at least nationwide in scale. It operated with impunity from Los Angeles to Washington, D.C., and even included allegations of homosexuality, prostitution, child trafficking against the Reagan and Bush administrations. Ted Gunderson also heard allegations of cocaine smuggling against President Bill Clinton from a pilot named Gene Chip Tatum, who served in the Special Forces, the CIA, and the DIA, and he worked directly for George H.W. Bush.
We found a large sum of money and 3 kilos of cocaine in one cooler. In the other cooler, we found all cocaine. Those 2 coolers were picked up by Dr. Lassiter, who actually ended up being, as we found out in later years, a man named Dan Lassiter, who was convicted for trafficking cocaine in Arkansas. However, he was pardoned by the then governor of Arkansas, Bill Clinton.
The Franklin case revealed that this network was extensive, sophisticated, and seemingly omnipotent, all demonstrating that this cult was not simply a recent phenomenon. The Franklin case was revealed partly thanks to the testimony of 3 key victims: Paul Bonacci, Alicia Owen, and Troy Bonner.
The kids he liked were mainly around the age of probably about 8 and 13. It was mainly fondling and oral sex with them. He did have some anal sex, but he usually did that with the older kids.
Bonacci named his abusers in front of the Franklin jury, together with Alicia Owen. Bonacci was initially indicted on charges of perjury, but on February 27, 1999, with the help of his lawyer John DeCamp, U.S. District Court Judge Warren Urbam found Larry King guilty and ordered him to pay Bonacci $800,000 in compensatory damages and an additional $200,000 in punitive damages. Bonacci claims to the present that he has never seen 1 cent of the money he was awarded. In 1990, the Nebraska State Franklin Committee hired former law enforcement turned independent researcher Gary Caradori, who investigated the Franklin case and taped interviews with these 3 survivors. Ted Gunderson also debriefed Paul Bonacci in 1993. Caradori felt extremely optimistic about bringing down charges on the child trafficking ring, saying, quote, "We've got them, we've got the hard evidence, there's no way they can get out of it now." Days later, on July 11, 1990 at 2:40 a.m., while flying home from the year's All-Star baseball game in Chicago, Caradori's plane suddenly crashed in Lee County, Illinois. Both Gary and his 8-year-old son Andrew perished in the crash. Although Caradori's personal effects were recovered, his briefcase containing evidence for the Franklin case, which he always kept with him, was lost. However, 31 pages of sheriff reports, coroner reports, and interviews are now in the public domain. On page 5 of the supplementary investigation report, we learn from Mrs. Caradori that their family had already received many death threats. Nebraska Senator Lauren Schmidt, who also served as the chair of the Franklin Committee, suspected Caradori's case could be a murder. On March 6, 1991, in an official letter from the Franklin Committee to National Safety Board Aviation Inspector Bill Bruce, Schmidt wrote, "I have visited with Mrs. Caradori, and she was adamant about the fact that none of the seats were ever removed from the aircraft. It seems to me that those 2 seats could not simply have disappeared. Certainly by now they should have shown up somewhere, unless something unusual would account for their disappearance." Schmidt closed with a somber comportment. "I am sure there will be those who will scoff at such a suggestion, but there have been entirely too many violent deaths associated with this investigation for me to accept the conclusion that Caradori's aircraft simply came apart in the sky." Despite the miscarriage of justice, it truly is hard to overstate exactly how close America came to the discovery of this entrenched crime network, thanks to revelations stemming from the Franklin case. If we are to accept that a satanic cabal once existed at the highest levels of government, do we have any evidence that it still thrives in America? Is the Franklin case the only instance of child trafficking being connected to the White House? On August 14, 2018, True Pundit broke the story of a 26-year-old man who claimed he was raped by Bill Clinton. The following year, True Pundit published video testimony of the victim, who provided graphic details of his experience.
There's a whole sequence of events leading up to when I was raped by him. There was an incredibly violent display going on, and I don't want to talk too much about that right now, but before I was raped by Bill Clinton, my uncle held me up over his head, and his accomplice walked up and slashed across the bottom of my feet with a scimitar and collected the blood in a chalice dish with us. He took a sip from it and then walked away through the crowd. He held me up and tried to get Bill Clinton's attention. Bill Clinton turned around and looked like, he gave this look like, what am I going to do? I have to do it.
Journalist and former police officer Jen Moore assisted the victim with gaining private hearings with the Department of Homeland Security and the FBI between July 6th and 9th of 2018.
The oath that I took to my state and my area and my country meant everything to me, from the day that I rose my right hand and to the last day that I was able to work. And so why I'm doing what I'm doing now is because there are many of us out there in this country that wear these badges that we swear an oath to our country and to the citizens to protect and serve them. And most of us, believe it or not, really care and really stand by the things that we do, and we make the decisions based on morals and ethics and an attempt to get justice for the people that we're sworn to protect.
Moore was interviewed by radio host Farmer Jones on July 18th and discussed the challenges she faced in gaining legal traction with the case. On August 13th, 2018, just weeks after contacting the feds, Moore was found dead. In correspondence with True Pundit, Moore had expressed grave concerns over the victim's safety in stepping forward. She was worried about the victim because he was the first to break the ice, Payne said. There were others waiting to tell their stories, but he was the catalyst. Moore's YouTube channel is still currently active and hosts dozens of her vlogs investigating child trafficking rings in the Washington, D.C. area. Moore died of an apparent seizure. Police are closely investigating the cause of death after former FBI agent Robin Gritz, a friend of Moore's, made inquiries with homicide detectives Monday afternoon in Prince George's County, Maryland. Preliminary reports from police said the death was not the result of suicide. Images of text message correspondence between Moore and True Pundit have emerged, showing her apparent awareness of efforts from the political establishment to quash investigations like hers and others into elite child trafficking and ritual abuse. Even Snopes, the leftist so-called fact-checking organization, simply rated Moore's assassinations as unproven. The Franklin case revealed that this child trafficking cult routinely used a tactic known as brownstoning, which is when a politician or prominent public figure is set up for blackmail. These operations typically involve hidden cameras that capture said individuals in compromising positions that the cult will leverage as blackmail. For instance, the Daily Mail reported in May 2020, there has long been speculation that Epstein had all his properties under surveillance. But Virginia Roberts, one of Epstein's most prominent victims, revealed it was used as an insurance policy. She said, when Epstein told me, people owe me favors, and I'll never get caught, and I can get away with it, he meant it. Jeffrey Epstein shared a long relationship with the Clintons, along with various other politicians and government elite. In fact, Daily Mail reported, Bill and Hillary Clinton stayed at Jeffrey Epstein's notorious baby-making ranch almost every year after they left the White House. The convicted pedophile even had a bizarre portrait of Bill wearing a dress hanging on the wall of his New York mansion. The dress is also strikingly similar to one worn by Hillary Clinton at the 2009 Kennedy Center honors. The New York Post also obtained photographs of Bill Clinton posing with Ghislaine Maxwell. Flight logs show that Bill Clinton flew at least 26 times on Epstein's private jet, the Lolita Express, to Little St. James, the billionaire's so-called orgy island. Clinton ditched his Secret Service detail for at least 5 of those flights. FOIA requests for the reason the Secret Service was dismissed have been ignored. However, court documents further revealed that Jeffrey Epstein had 21 different phone numbers for Bill Clinton. On July 6, 2016, Fox News ran an article entitled "Billionaire Sex Offender Epstein Once Claimed He Co-Founded Clinton Foundation." If this is true, what would be the implications of a well-connected child trafficker co-founding a charity that frequently operates in third world countries with a former Secretary of State and First Lady? Moreover, how should these revelations inform our opinions on the 12 different women accusing former President Bill Clinton of rape? On September 10, 2015, The Josh Tolley Show featured a self-proclaimed former high priest of Satan who divulged secrets of Satan's World Church, which he claims is the politically motivated group of Satanists behind the New World Order.
And I had heard that there was a satanic group that was out to rule the world. And I just thought that was the most amazing thing. If that really existed, that's what I wanted to be part of. So I contacted my original cult, and they put me in contact with Satan's World Church. And I was like, honestly, this is the name? Satan's World Church? Okay. So I go out and I find these guys. They give me an address and a phone number and all of that. So I go to one of their meetings. And even at the local level, their meetings are gigantic.
In the interview, the guest claims that he personally saw Bill and Hillary Clinton, George Bush Sr. and Jr., and Barack Obama attend Bohemian Grove.
I've seen the Bushes there. I had not seen, I don't know that I would have known Jeb Bush at that point, so I don't know if I saw Jeb or not. I know I saw George and W. I've seen Bill Clinton. I've seen, I saw it's a men's only event. Hillary showed up at one of the events. She walked on property to tell Bill something, and she got escorted off the property by security.
On August 23, 1987, Kevin Ives, 17, and Don Henry, 16, were killed in Alexander, Arkansas. The boys' bodies had been mutilated by a train, but they also contained bullet holes. The boys' story was even featured on Unsolved Mysteries. According to The Sun, after pressure from the boys' families, a grand jury ruled in 1988 that they had probably been murdered. Mystery has continued to swirl around the case since then, with nobody ever brought to justice for the killings. In 2018, former professional wrestler Billy Jack Haynes confessed that he participated in a cocaine trafficking network and witnessed the murders and even helped dispose of the bodies. He attributed his drug addiction and mental issues to him keeping this dark secret. He claims that under the cover of darkness, millions of dollars of cocaine were being trafficked by corrupt cops and politicians across Arkansas. The night of the murders, he claims he was contracted for $50,000 to kill 2 cops who had been stealing money from the drug drops. According to Daily Mail, Haynes said he bought his supply from Barry Seal, a Louisiana smuggler for the Medellin cartel, who later operated out of an airport in Mena, Arkansas. Barry Seal later introduced me to a politician drug dealer from Arkansas. Seal was assassinated in 1986 after turning DEA informant. In August of 1987, I was contacted by the Arkansas criminal politician and was asked if I would provide muscle for an Arkansas drug drop. Despite his confession and corroborating details, Haynes' testimony was never investigated by authorities. Haynes met with Kevin Ives' parents and provided a written statement to their private investigator, naming the drug-dealing Arkansas politician. After giving a few interviews on the matter, no one has seen or heard from Haynes since April 2020.
No constitution or international agreement provides unqualified protection for religious liberty, nor should it. Suppose a group wanted to revive the worship of Moloch, and the associated practice of child sacrifice. No society would tolerate that today. So religious liberty must have its limits.